Hey, it's me, Wild Neptune. This is the Arknights Endfield video, giving my thoughts after playing for the past 2 days. Let's go. As someone who has not played the beta and purposely avoided almost all spoilers about the game, Endfield is not what I was expecting. All I knew from some of the previews was it looked like another Genshin clone, and while it has elements of games like Genshin and others like that, it adds a lot more to the formula for better or worse. I've been playing over the past few days or so, and I'm still discovering new things in the game, partly just because there's a lot of content jammed into it, and partly because I'm just doing things rather inefficiently and keep getting sidetracked. This is an overview, and I'm not going to cover everything, and will avoid spoilers past the first couple of hours of typical play. But before we continue, if you like this content and want to see more like it, please subscribe, leave a like, and comment below. Your support is greatly appreciated. Let's get combat out of the way first. I like how your entire team is with you, well, the 4 characters you choose to be on your team, and you beat everything up together. You can combo with each other, you have separate ultimate bars to do your ultimate attacks in sequence. This lets you mix and match several setups that fit your style, or maybe you just like certain characters. I've not really played Genshin in a long time, and only touched the other clones very briefly, so I can't make big comparisons here. But combat seems to be more about knowing any mechanics and how your units interact with each other to maximize damage, versus being a rather technical fighter or anything like that. Also, I know this game you can play on mobile, but I'll never understand how players are able to handle mobile controls here. Of course, being an open world game, there has to be a lot of exploration, and there is. There's a ton of random treasures and places everywhere that require you to take notes of and come back later with different abilities or items in order to get by and past the obstacles. Like a lot of games like these, there are also rare spawns and materials that you also have to go back to on a timer because these things are crucial for progression. Now with all that being said, there is some interesting things in the game here that are about to kick in. The world has a lot of verticality, and while it's not a platformer, there is more required jumping in the game than I expected. However, I do feel like some of this is purposely manufactured because of something called a zipline. Just like in real life, ziplines will allow you to travel across places at faster speeds, bridging gaps and passing enemies also. However, to set these up, you have to connect them to your power grid, and this can get rather tedious. I kind of feel like some parts of travel and just moving around places is kind of hamstrung because you're expected to use these. Well, if you don't use them, well, you're just not really having a lot of fun and wasting a lot of time. That being said though, I do think overall ziplines is a cool addition to the game. Now on top of being this world's savior or whatever, a master swordsman, a mega rizzer, you are also an expert electrician, a surveyor, and a factory worker, among other things. The world of Endfield runs on electricity, and it's your job to the power lines to deliver power to the far edges of the map. The gate you can't open probably needs power. That floating orb you can't reach probably needs power. Can't beat this combat encounter? Send some turrets on the ground, but don't forget that they need power. Now we get to the core of it. The core of the game. The factory. While Endfield does have a simple crafting system like it do other games, in order to produce a lot of the goods in the game, you have to manufacture them. And to do that, you need to build your factory. Similar to the likes of Factorio, you set up different machines and sequence them to produce and stock your goods, while at the same time set up resource gathering nodes around the map. For a player like me who likes building collaborative setups or something like this is great, but while players need to interact with the system somewhat, I think the devs knew that this would not be for everyone, and you can make blueprints, which are basically a floor plan for a factory, from a friend, or you get it from a code online, so the actual input you need from an individual player simply varies on what they want to do. But wait, there is more! In addition to this factory project, you also have a garden. You can delve into the speculation market. And the game also has a small tower defense minigame you get to a little bit later, which unfortunately uses actual turret for towers rather than your usual NPC standing around shooting things. Speaking of NPCs, let's talk about the characters. We know that Endfield takes place far enough into the future that most, if not all, characters from the original game will be absent. However, there are a lot of characters that might be descendants as they share very similar looks and traits. The only character in the game with the exact same name, I think, is Chen, who you meet very early, although it is not the same Chen from the original game. Just like the original game too, Enfield is not very far into the Gunner territory. In fact, Enfield might be less Gunner than the original, and while some of the characters might show a shoulder blade or have a midriff, there are way more extreme examples in this space, even within the exact same type of game that Enfield is. As a person who tends to play more the Gunner gachas, I actually think this is fine. I'm sure they will release more eye-raising characters down the line. All these games do. And I'd much rather see it start tame at first than not be taken seriously if it started out at a 10 or an 11 in this area. Now, I happen to be a heathen, and I play these games with English audio, and it's a good thing I don't listen to the audio that often because it's not very good. While some parts and characters are strong performances, a lot of the players will judge on the very first few pieces of dialogue they hear, and it's something. I know that in a lot of cases it's just poor direction that leads to bad voice acting, but some of these just seem rather phoned in or terribly miscast in my opinion. I suspect that some of it might have even been AI, but I don't really know for sure. Even though there is voice acting is not great, for me it's not really a deal breaker because I choose to suffer through this rather than just change the language to something else. And for some other things, this is a gacha game, and the gacha does use a 50-50 pity with a 120 pull guarantee. This might seem high or low depending on the type of game that you play, what other gachas you play. I will say that the currency you get is not super plentiful overall, at least in comparison to other games I have played, and it is kind of stingy over because the pity does not seem to guarantee into the next unit, which is something I think they should fix. Also, there is just a gear gacha too that uses a separate currency you get from pulling on the main gacha, and it's just kind of confusing overall. In fact, there's a lot of shops with different currencies and can get somewhat overwhelming. As someone who is a seasoned vet in gacha games, I was quickly able to navigate this mess, but for a new player, this can be very, very daunting. In fact, I would say this game as a whole can be very overwhelming, and 100% I think not a game that a player who is brand new to this genre will feel very comfortable in. I think the devs knew this, so they overcompensated by putting in tutorials for everything. And I mean everything. Even the most basic concepts of the game, something that you would have in another video game, not even a gacha game, are just in this with a tutorial. Well, some of them just access in the game itself and get a list with a small reward. Others are automatic in the world, and they are just very tedious to go through. In fact, I do find a lot of dialogue itself to be very tedious. You can't skip it really fast, and even clicking through it, there is a bit of a delay. So even a player like me, who sometimes will read the dialogue really, really fast and just want to click through it, I can't do that because the game won't let me. Personally, I think Endfield has a lot going for it. The combat is good enough, and has a decent amount of side content to break out the monotony. That said, I think that the gacha rates can be improved, and the pity system has to be cleaned up also. And also, there are a bunch of things in the game, small things, but they add up, that do have to be a little more streamlined before I can give this an A+ rating. Anyway, I'm still enjoying my time though, and do plan to keep playing in the future. Anyway, that's all for now. I'm Neptune. It's been a good one. Till next time.